Hello, everybody, and welcome to the KeenGamer podcast. I'm Max. I'll be your host for this lovely evening, or whatever time of day it is when you're listening to this. I'm joined in the virtual studio this wonderful day by Ben and Luis. Howdy, guys. How's it going?
Hello.
Doing okay, thank you.
Wicked, wicked.
Very hot. Very, very hot here in
Yes.
London.
Which is very unusual, I would imagine.
I'm so British that it gets above 22 degrees Celsius and I start complaining.
I remember it well.
I must be around 36 here.
All right. Make us feel bad about it, why don't you?
That's pretty hot.
Yeah.
Well, it's Mexico for you.
But yeah, we've got a wonderful bumper episode for you this week, everybody. As usual, of course. Later on, we're going to be digging into Nintendo and the future of the company, what it might have in store, potentially an E3 and beyond over the course of the rest of the year, and even onward from that. But before that, we got a few little news stories that we're going to dig into. The first of which is one that a number of people, I'm sure, will have come across regarding Far Cry 6, which is currently in development. It's been in the news a bit recently because there's been some mixed messages coming out from some members of the development team about whether or not it's political, which is a fairly big question, considering that even though it's set in this fictional Caribbean island, like it leans a lot on the history and the politics of Cuba, as I understand it. And yeah, so initially there was this interview with, who was it? Some of the people involved. Wait, Navid Kavari, but he was
Navid Kavari.
Yes, yeah. And when they were talking about what the game would be, there was this kind of felt a bit like a company line that a lot of games have towed over the last several decades, really, of like, we're not taking a stance with this game. We're not saying anything overtly political, which a lot of people took umbrage with because it's a very politically heated kind of thing, the history and the culture and the politics of it all. And so that the same member of the team, Navid Kavari, the narrative director, he's confirmed in a new update on the Ubisoft blog. This is according to a wonderful little article on VG247 by Dom Pepiat, that actually, yes, their new upcoming game, Far Cry 6, is inherently political, almost unavoidably so, and it is inspired by the real-world historical events that have taken place in Cuba. There's a quote here from Kavari saying, "Our story is political. A story about a modern revolution must be. There are hard, relevant discussions in Far Cry 6 about the conditions that lead to the rise of fascism in a nation, the costs of imperialism, forced labor, the need for free and fair elections, LGBTQ plus rights, and more within the context of Yara, a fictional island in the Caribbean." And I mean, there's quite a lot to dig into around this, I think, not all of which we have the time to really get stuck into today. But I was just wondering, like, what are your guys' takes on this almost flip-flopping between kind of towing the party line and actually owning up to the ideas behind the game's plot and the story and how it fits into a broader political and cultural narrative?
Yeah, I think there's like a big debate between, using a politically charged environment as set dressing in a video game and having a political video game that kind of doesn't matter in this situation. What matters more is that the guy from Ubisoft came out and said, it's not political, or we're not making a political statement, is what he actually said. But yeah, we're not making a political statement. And then a day later, 24 hours, maybe within 2 days at least, I'm not quite sure, he turned around and said, actually, our game is political. Here's a clarification. And obviously, communication is hard. Sometimes people get things wrong. But I do think the history with Ubisoft, you've had Watch Dogs Legion not being political, even though it's post-Brexit Britain, surveillance state things, which are inherently related to political topics. And then before that, you've had Far Cry 5, which had Deep South extremists. Like, there are politics in the games, even if the games aren't trying to be political. And every single time the teams have tried to say this isn't political, or maybe not the team, sorry, the media side, the media spin. And so it's kind of interesting to see this happen. Then the backlash happened to this isn't political. And then the walk back is the first time I think we've ever seen that. And I think that's kind of the key here, is that it's the first time Ubisoft has not said that line and stuck with it. We've suddenly got a clarification, a bit of nuance. And I think it's healthy, but it's also interesting because it does tread a fine line between, it doesn't make, there's no statements there. It's more just like, here's a clarification.
Yeah. I think it's also worth noting, because on this VG 24/7 article, they've also got the initial quote from Kavari, which, although in all the headlines and stuff, it was always presented as like Far Cry 6 is not a political game. What he actually specifically said was that Far Cry 6 was not meant to be a political statement about what's happening in Cuba specifically, which is slightly different. And in many ways, like, even though they might have been inspired by the history of Cuba to make their own story, which is based on it, like, that doesn't necessarily equate to them making a specific statement on that. Perhaps a broader statement on well, as Kavari then went on to clarify, like, the conditions that lead to these revolutions and massive political changes in states like that. But it's not the same as saying our game isn't political at all, which is something that a lot of other companies have done over the years.
I'm personally leaning towards believing that there is a certain degree of overinterpretation and, I guess, liberty or too much of a license when creating a headline here. Because what I'm seeing here on the VG 24/7 and essentially every other tweet that I saw about this particular issue, they're painting the headline as if the developer or the narrative director said that the game is political. This actual headline says Far Cry is political after all, Ubisoft says. However, on the actual quote, it says our story is political, and I think that's a big difference. Like, it's not the same to have a political story in a game about war. Like, I think that's unavoidable as to say that our game is political. And I think this is, I believe it's made on bad faith, because, you know, the politics in games narrative is something that is almost guaranteed to explode on social media. Yeah, I'm in favor, I'm against it, blah, blah, blah. I don't want politics, I do want politics, everything is political, you know. So I think it's inflammatory on purpose, and I think it's done in bad faith. I don't believe having a political story is the same as having a political games. I'm thinking maybe the first original Call of Duty Black Ops had a setting or a mission in Cuba, the very first one, and I don't believe the game is a political game. It's, I mean, I don't think it's posting a political message, but it has politics on its story, and I don't think it's the same thing at all. So is the game going to be political or not? That's another thing. Maybe we have to wait to see it. Now, is it relevant that it's political or not, that it has politics on it, or that it's trying to push an agenda? I don't think it is. As long as the game is entertaining, I don't particularly care if it's political or not. Political.
Yeah, my kind of, I really agree with that. Like, my take on it is that most games use political environments or political times in history to create set dressing that the audience can immediately understand and think is deep, but then they don't explore it. And then obviously there's a discussion about whether, you know, a game should try and explore a setting in an interesting way, or whether it should just utilize it to be an entertaining space. And that's a whole nother discussion. But I do think, like, Ubisoft is the perfect example of, here's an entertaining time in history where things were heated. It's inevitably a political time, but we're not talking about it. You're going to shoot a gun at lots of people and run around. I don't know, like, I even though I have opinions, I'm fine with that. I don't know if I want a Far Cry game that's trying to give a political message, because those aren't nuanced interesting, deep games. They're very clear, fun, objective-based, entertaining food, and I want to like kind of gobble them up and have fun with them. So I don't want to completely blame Ubisoft here. I kind of think like the discussion is important, and then social media blows out of proportion, but also Ubisoft is kind of playing into the hands of it. And I think that comes from a bit of maybe I'm being cynical, but a bit of an understanding that Far Cry 6 can get a lot of just people talking about it because they've said one thing, they've said another, and everybody cares about that. So
yeah. I mean, I for one had almost forgotten that Far Cry 6 was in development until all of this started taking over the news cycle a bit, and that's almost certainly no accident. But yeah, like I think you both raise an extremely good point about like that difference between a political story and a political game, like the very nature of games, which I think is still something that the industry is kind of figuring out a bit, even decades since its inception. But like the way that you make a sort of a political game or an emotional game or a meaningful game, like it's not just about the story or like the set dressing, as you said, Ben. Like it's not like the stuff that is just kind of there on the screen. It's about how the player interacts with those things and that world and those people in it. And as you say, like Far Cry as a series is kind like the way that the player usually interacts with it is by running around and shooting a load of people or like endangered animals in some cases. And unless they're going to radically change that, like it doesn't seem
relevant.
as you and like it, like if they are going to end up trying to tell a meaningful political or politically charged story, then like that feels like it might not be the right vehicle for it, as you said, Ben.
There's very few first-person shooters that I think have succeeded at telling something that has a political message. I think like the biggest one that comes to mind is Half-Life 2, and that's a very long time ago.
Yeah.
So that it's not you don't think of that genre as the place to find it. I mean, I can't really think of anything obvious that's not an obscure way of interacting with the game. There's nothing that's like a clear genre, like an FPS or a clear action game. They're kind of more obscure. They're different ways of telling stories, and they're pushing a message.
Yeah,
games are kind of like fun, and you're meant to interact with them in a fun way. And it's quite hard to tell that story in a deep way, so it just often isn't told.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are still ways of doing it that aren't that out of the ordinary. There's Spec Ops: The Line, which is often held up as like an exemplar of like you can kind of tell a compelling and thought-provoking, like and shocking and politically charged story, even within the context of like a genre of games that is known, you know, for running around and shooting people. It's like you have to like work out how to use those mechanics to strengthen the story that you want to tell, rather than them just kind of being removed from each other, I guess. Like, I think you're right that like games should be entertaining, but there's also like there are different kinds of entertainment, and sometimes people seek that kind of sense of catharsis, almost like, you know, horror games aren't always necessarily like fun in the way that you might immediately think of when you think of fun stuff, but
they're
like,
thrill.
yeah, like they are a thrill, and people get entertainment out of them in that sense. But yeah,
no, I definitely don't think games should be fun. I think they just need to be interesting minimum. What I mean is more that a Ubisoft game does have to be, because of the nature of the beast, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
As long as the game is good and entertaining, I particularly don't care if it tries to be political or not. I don't think there's anything wrong with trying to be political, but I do believe you're taking a risk when doing something obviously or blatantly political or too pandering.
Yeah,
and that's fine. I mean, you can do whatever you want, but it's probably not going to sit right with a lot of people. So you have to walk a very thin line. But as long as I'm having fun, I don't particularly care. Personally.
Yeah. I mean, it's the line that developers choose to walk when they want to do something like that. Like if you take a stance on anything, then by its definition, you're going to have to exclude the people who think differently from that. And even then, like the people who think the same things that you do might, as you say, like feel like you're just pandering to them, and it won't appeal to them either. Like it's really hard. And some people get it right, and other people get it extremely wrong. And it'll certainly be interesting to see what happens with Far Cry.
I think that drills into what Ubisoft has been doing this whole time. Is we don't want to lose 5% of our sales by saying this is a political game about something. Yeah, I think that is why it is. They understand that the audience is going to be a varied one. So let's just say it's a game that's fun, and the politics are there if you look at them. Kind of.
Yeah, for sure.
But isn't that true for every media, like movies and books and comics and whatnot? I mean, you're always taking a risk. I mean, and some people are not gonna like what you do because not everything is for everyone. And I had a point I wanted to get and I lost my train. And I mean, I think it's naive from some parts of the gamers or gaming community to expect to never see any kind of politics on a game or never see a publisher push politics, because that is going to happen. And there's no way around it, even if you don't like it or don't like it or don't care like me. Because you can simply not buy the game or not support the developer or whatever. But it's also naive from the publishers to not expect any sort of flashback at any point for whatever they try to make. So there's always some middle ground, and there's always some nuance to these issues. In this particular matter with Far Cry, I do believe the headlines were deliberately wrong and inflammatory. That's my take. I don't think the reporting is being done right. I haven't seen how it's been reported on our side. I hope it's been doing better. But I don't think the headline is true to what they were saying. It's not the same to have a political story as to have a political game.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, well, that's Far Cry 6 still in development. We'll see how it turns out. Our next news story that we have selected here, I'll be honest, I mostly picked this one out to chat briefly about for me, because I'm a big fan of 2 Point Hospital. The news story in question is the leaking of the upcoming 2 Point Campus, which briefly existed as a listing on the on the Microsoft Store and was covered by a few different outlets. I've got an article on Game Informer here from Brian Shea, not sure how you pronounce that, Brian. Sorry if I mispronounced it. Yeah, it looks like 2 Point Hospital, which I love a lot, is getting something of a sequel where you get to run a university. 2 Point Hospital, for those who don't know, is the spiritual sequel to the 90s classic Theme Hospital, which is kind of fun, quirky, silly management sim where you run a hospital and all these people turn up with all sorts of weird diseases and conditions like bloaty head and slack tongue and invisibility and stuff like that, and you need to make sure that everything runs like a well-oiled machine and doesn't go up in flames like a well-oiled machine that was too well-oiled and someone set it on fire. And so it looks like they're making a new one and potentially coming out fairly soon if it briefly had a listing on the Microsoft Store. Have either of you guys played 2 Point Hospital or even Theme Hospital back in the day? Not sure if I'm showing my age there, but anyway.
I have not. The only thing that's similar to what this is, I guess, that I played is City Skyline, I guess.
Oh yeah.
2 Point Hospital, I have not. I don't know why. I mean, I've seen videos of it, and I've seen what would you call it, reactions, I guess. I don't know if it's reactions is the right word, but no, 2 Points I haven't actually played.
No, I've been very interested in 2 Point Hospital. I've never picked it up, but I love tycoon games. So obviously Roller Coaster Tycoon was quite formative in me growing up.
Absolute classic.
SimCity was very formative. Close, but not the same. The Sims series. Also, I really loved like the I've forgotten what the dev is called, but they made a Game Dev Tycoon, and they do a lot of mini games like that. And they just basically do this kind of very small mobile-esque tycoon style of game. But I love them a lot. Like I spent way too much of my teen years playing Roller Coaster Tycoon. So I've always looked at it and thought I'd love that, but I don't know why the hospital theme just didn't interest me enough. But when I saw this, I thought, heck yeah, I want to build a university.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I like 2 Point Hospital had been on my radar for a little while. It came out originally in 2018, I think. And then came to consoles last year. And I initially picked it up on the Switch when it came to consoles. And it was like towards the beginning of the pandemic. And in retrospect, I don't know why this game about running a hospital really like seemed like something I wanted to get into at the beginning of a horrible pandemic. But I did, and I really loved it. It's such a kind of faithful tip of the hat to Theme Hospital, which I played absolutely to death in my youth. And it's enough of its own thing that it kind of adds a lot of the kind of modern conveniences of games that have come out since the 90s, but like it still feels very authentic in like its weird diseases and like silly jokes and staff members and patients with weird like very kind of British jokey names. Yeah, like I really enjoyed it, and in fact once we got out here to Valencia and I got set up with my new computer and stuff, I then immediately went and bought it on PC as well, because feels like a sim game like that you want to be playing it more with a mouse and keyboard than with a console controller, and it was worth it. It was great. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to this prospective university sim. I don't like I'll be really interested to see what they do with it, because like it feels like there would be a very big difference in sort of the day-to-day running of your institution, because in 2 Point Hospital you got your patients coming in and out, and there's this constant like cycle of people moving through the system, which obviously then plays into how you design the place and your finances and the choices that you make in order to maximize your profits and things like that. But with a university, like it's automatically going to be very different, because like I would imagine that you're kind of talking getting students in for terms or semesters at a time, rather than just kind of in and out in the course of a few days. And it'll be fascinating to see how the mechanics change accordingly with that.
No, I feel like this is one of those games that I will pick up and play 100 hours of. I think half the reason I didn't look at 2 Point Hospital is because I was like, there's enough of a reason not to, because I get very addicted to these sorts of games. But like 2 Point University, what was the name for it? 2 Point Campus. 2 Point Campus, yeah. So if you think of like Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, which is just one of the best tycoon sims, it is just like a campus, but it's instead of riding a roller coaster, you're doing a different lecture, or you're getting some food in the meeting hall. Like obviously 2 Point Hospital has that, but I guess there's like, I don't know, for me there's just a different vibe. I guess it's more like people die, whereas in university people do the opposite kind of. They get ready for their lives. Yeah. So that's university what I'm thinking. I don't know. Yeah, so I kind of feel like I'd be very, very excited to play this.
Yeah, I am very much looking forward to it. So yeah, 2 Point Campus. There is zero extra information about it at this point. What's the name of the designers? 2 Point Studios, I think, haven't even announced anything officially yet.
They're well branded, aren't they?
Yeah.
2 Point Studios do 2 Point Hospital. Next game, 2 Point Campus.
I'm sensing a theme here. But yeah, they haven't.
No, it's not Theme Hospital. It's 2 Point.
But yeah, they have not even officially announced this game, so there's no extra information here. But you can rest assured that the moment any new intel comes to light, you'll be able to find it over on KeenGamer.com, presumably in the news section. So yeah, we've got one more news story for you all today, and some, it's that rare little nugget of good news that occasionally crosses our path. The Humble Heal COVID-19 bundle, which was launched a few weeks ago, has now finished, having raised over $1 million for various charities helping parts of the world that have been really racked by the pandemic. And that is just fantastic. Like I am, as Ben knows well, a huge proponent of the Humble Bundle and the Humble Bundle company in general. I think like they're fantastic value for money. You can routinely get hundreds or even thousands of dollars worth of games or books or comics or all sorts for whatever you want to pay. I think there's like maybe a minimum payment of $1. They also have their own like storefront as well, if you want to kind of buy in individual games and things. And they raise so much money for these worthy causes, which is just amazing. Like they did make the news a few weeks ago because they have traditionally had these kind of sliders where you can choose where your money goes. Like say if you want to buy something for $20, then you can choose a percentage that goes to the developer or the publisher of the game, a percentage that goes to Humble itself for their overheads and things, and a percentage that goes to the charity in question. Like you really have this kind of granular control over where your money goes, which is really novel. And they got into the news a few weeks ago because they wanted to change that over to kind of set amounts going to each of those options, and a lot of the users lashed back quite significantly, and they have since, I believe, reinstated the sliders, which is its whole other thing. But the story for today is their Heal COVID-19 bundle, which had just a ton of games in it, and has managed to raise over $1 million for the humanitarian efforts of Direct Relief, Doctors Without Borders, International Medical Corps, and Give India. So they're groups particularly focusing on places like Brazil and India, which are still being hit very hard by COVID, even while some other parts of the world are kind of starting to see the light a bit with vaccinations rolling out and things like that. So that is just fantastic, in my opinion. But enough about my opinions. What are your opinions on it, guys?
Well, I kind of am quite warm and fuzzy inside because I don't know. I like, this is one of the worst things that's kind of, at least in my lifetime, ever happened, like to human beings. So there's like financial crises and things like that, but like an active direct like number of like people dying and things. And like obviously, like I've given to charity, people give to charity, but the best way to motivate people to give to charity is to give them something in return.
Yeah.
And Humble has always done that, and this is just evidence of them doing it again. And like, if I was a PC gamer, I would dive into pretty much every Humble bundle, because every time I bought a game, I could have a little dose of endorphins thinking I've done good for the world. Whereas every time I buy a game on my Xbox, I think, I just bought another game, haven't I?
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, so like, not only is Humble like a wonderful thing in the way it like changes that dynamic, £1 million or $1 million, sorry, like £825,000 is an unbelievable amount to support countries that are going through some of the worst things they've ever been through. So
yeah,
it's very nice news.
Yeah, I think it's pretty amazing when people in general get together and do stuff like this, and I think it's something of a staple with video games. It's happened. I don't know if it happens yearly, but I've seen it a few times. There are a group of streamers also, I believe, in France that do something like that, and they do like a like a long as stream to raise a certain amount of money, and they always meet the goal, and they donate the proceeds to charity. That's great. I'm personally more into trying to do more and donating more to more local stuff. But I think it's, what's the word, remarkable that something based off of video games is actually doing something so amazingly good when there are so many other institutions or individuals even that could even do the same or even more. But I mean,
Yeah.
Whatever, whatever comes from it, it's a good thing. It's better than nothing, and I think good news are always welcome.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's just a little quickie on the end of the news round.
Yeah.
Just
nothing to debate about that. It's just
No,
very
yeah.
lovely.
We're
It's a
all
very
very
good
happy
thing.
about it, and it's great and well done, humble. Here's to many more good things to come from you in the future. Speaking of the future, we're now on to the main topic of today's episode, which is titled Nintendo's Future. Yeah, we just wanted to get together and just have a little chinwag about what we expect from Nintendo going forward. Obviously, we've got EE3 coming up next weekend, where we can expect to see all sorts of very cool announcements. Hopefully, maybe it'll be really disappointing. Only time will tell. But yeah, we wanted to talk a bit about what might come out of that, and even going forward over the course of the rest of the year and onwards with regards to the big flagship franchises, big hardware announcements or changes that might be coming up, and just kind of general company policy that may or may not change or need to be changed in the future. Shall we start with talking a bit about the big series and what we might expect from them in the future? I mean, Mario is the obvious starter, isn't it? Like the iconic red-clad plumber. He's been having a pretty good run. I think, like, I have seen some people kind of talking about the possibility of a Mario Odyssey 2, but I haven't really heard anything official, but it's more like if they were going to announce it, then maybe it'll be in this kind of period. But I think that would be very cool. It was a monstrously successful game, wasn't it? Like, I'm pretty sure that sold a bunch of Switches on its own.
Yeah.
And like, I've 100%ed that game and loved every second of it. It's a wonder to play. So if Nintendo can give me more of that, I'll be pretty happy.
Yeah, I think I don't know what I think will happen next with Mario, because after what we've got with lots and lots of re-releases and then funny little things like Super Mario Bros. 35, I kind of think like if Mario Odyssey 2 was gonna happen, it would have happened. But like I could definitely be wrong. This is just my hunch. I just kind of feel like the only time they've done a sequel before is Galaxy 2. And I think that was 3 years or maybe less after the original. And it's been 4 years now. And they kind of did an Odyssey 2 with Bowser's Fury, but like pushed it into a different, game. I think my vibe, at least, just the way I'm looking at it, the way I'm seeing it, I think Nintendo is going to do a Mario something else that will obviously take from all the games before it. But I think it will probably just have a different name and might have a bit of a different setup.
Wasn't there a sequel for Paper Mario 2?
There were 2 sequels to... No, 3 now, I think. No, 4. God. Yeah, there was
5? Or...
Paper Mario, Paper Mario, the Thousand Year Door, Super Paper Mario. Then there was the sticker one. And then recently there was Paper
Sticker
Mario
Star.
and the Origami King.
Yeah.
So wow, it's a whole friggin' series.
Yeah, Origami King was really good.
Yeah, I
Really good.
I never played it, even though I loved at least the first 2 Paper Mario games. I thought Super Paper Mario was fun enough, but I think Thousand Year Door was like the peak Paper Mario game.
Yeah,
I only knew about 1,000 Year Door. I didn't know it had so many. I didn't think that Paper Mario was so popular. I mean, I don't particularly play Mario games a lot. I do play them here and there with my friends who have Switches because I don't have a Switch right now.
Mhm.
And yeah, I never thought that Paper Mario would be the longest, I guess, series that they have because I didn't know it was so popular. But it must be popular if that's what they're doing now.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't actually know if it's that popular. I just think I think it's popular enough because the word Mario is in the title.
Yeah.
Like I think most people are pretty lukewarm on the majority of things other than Thousand Year Door. Like
Yeah.
most people were lukewarm on Origami King.
Yeah.
But I was like here playing it thinking, what the hell are you talking about? This is hilarious and fun and lovely. I want to hug it. But everybody else was like 7 out of 10. I was like, make it an 8 or a 9. Come on.
Go on. Go on.
Yeah, go on.
But yeah, like that, like Paper Mario is still definitely like a spin-off Mario series, but like the Mario and Luigi games also, like there have been three of them, I think.
Maybe.
Yeah, and I mean, like I guess the kind of mainline 3D games, you're right, like the only one that's received a direct sequel has been Mario Galaxy. But like back in the NES and SNES days, like, you know, you had Mario Bros, Mario Bros 2, Mario Bros 3, like Super Mario World, and then Super Mario World 2 with the babies.
Yeah.
I feel like it's not outside of the realm of possibility that we might see a direct sequel to Odyssey, especially considering its massive popularity, you know. But
yeah, I just
yeah.
I looked up quickly the Mario and Luigi series. So there was Superstar Saga for the Game Boy Advance in 2003.
Great game.
Partners in Time for the DS in 2005.
All right,
Bowser's Inside Story in 2009. Dream Team on 3DS in 2013. Paper Jam on 3DS in 2015. And then Superstar Saga and Bowser's Inside Story got redid with extra bits in 2017 and 2018. So there's more of it than you would have guessed. Yeah.
I think with the Mario and Luigi games, I think the development was outsourced to a different company. Were they Capcom?
Yeah. So I think the developer actually just got bought by Nintendo, or it just closed, and I can't remember which one, which is really bad. But I could look that up too if you want.
No, yeah, like I mean, my point was just like we may well see a sequel to Odyssey, but like probably a bunch of other stuff as well, considering, you know, we've seen this re-release of the Wii U Mario Brothers thing with Bowser's Fury and stuff. Like we may well see some more stuff like that's sort of bridging the gap between your traditional kind of side-scrolly Marios and the 3D ones a bit. But yeah, honestly, I don't really know what to expect. I never really know what to expect with regards to Mario from Nintendo, because they they really love just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. And it feels like E3 could be a complete mystery.
The main thing I have with it as well is like with Mario games, like there's no point in counting. Like,
yeah,
it doesn't matter how long it is. Nintendo kind of try and wait as long as they can.
Yeah.
I think Sunshine is the only time they've not waited long enough, but it's still an excellent game. They kind of always wait until they are ready to put the game out. They're good at doing that.
Yeah. For the record, I have always felt that Super Mario Sunshine was unfairly maligned. Like it's far from a perfect game, but it's fun enough.
No, it's a good game, but it's not Mario good. That's all I'll say.
I guess so.
I really like Sunshine. I mean, I personally didn't play a lot of Marios. I jumped from Mario 64 to Sunshine. And then I guess I played Odyssey a little bit. Did I beat Odyssey? I don't remember if I beat Odyssey. But I did enjoy Sunshine quite a bit. I had my GameCube and everything.
Yeah,
I think it's a good game.
Yeah, it had a really nice vibe to it, I feel, because of the kind of tropical, fun island, colorful sort of thing. And I really enjoyed that. But yeah, like it's not Mario 64, which is obviously iconic. But hey,
Yes, it is.
I'll tell you what I'm loath to even really bring it up, to be honest, because I feel like it's going to jinx everything. But Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 E3 announcement? I don't know.
I think it may be too soon for that one.
Yeah, I have a horrible feeling you're right.
No. Don't say that. Don't say
Yeah,
that.
I think you
Ben
just
remains
jinxed it.
faithful.
Yeah, no. I think it's coming this year. Breath of the Wild 2.
Ooh.
We're going to be told about it at E3. It's going to come out in September, October, November, December, whenever it wants to. From then, I really feel it. Like,
Bold.
I don't know why, but I think I need it this year. So therefore, I'm certain it's going to come this year. Because if it doesn't come this year, woof, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Please, Nintendo.
Yeah,
I need
that's
this.
rather optimistic. I think maybe next year, well, maybe the year for Breath of the Wild 2.
Yeah, I feel like we might see something of an announcement at E3, maybe even just like a kind of new cinematic trailer or something. But I would be.
We have to, like, because when they announced Skyward Sword, sorry, I
We have to!
keeping up on this. No, the reason we have to is because when they announced Skyward Sword, during the presentation they said later this year you'll hear more about Breath of the Wild's sequel. So we have to hear it within this year, and the only time that kind of makes sense is either E3 or September, because there aren't any directs over Christmas often, and if they are, they're very indie based. So by the track record, it would either be E3 or September.
And E3 does seem to be the sensible place to release something like that. But yeah, like even if we get that, which as you point out is hopefully quite likely, I would be amazed, pleasantly amazed, if we got it before next year. Like, it just doesn't seem Nintendo's style to announce something and release it in the same year. I mean, as you were saying before,
they announced
like they
it in
take their
2019,
time.
though.
Yeah,
So
but
they did announce it ages ago. Like, it's getting to the Metroid Prime 4 level of delay between announcement and release. Like, it's been a long time.
Yeah. I mean, when did the original Breath of the Wild come out? That was 2017?
2017, March, yeah.
Yeah. I guess if they
they announced it in 2014 or 15, I think. It was quite early for that. I think it was 15. So 2.5 years, roughly, yeah.
I guess if they started development on it fairly soon after the release of Breath of the Wild, which is not inconceivable after seeing how popular it was, that gives them kind of 4 years. Like, I would probably still give them 5. Although if it's in the same engine and stuff, then that might mean that the turnaround is like fractionally quicker. I don't know. I don't know what to think anymore.
So the only stuff I've read about it is that they said that the Breath of the Wild sequel came out of the DLC for Breath of the Wild. They started making DLC for Breath of the Wild, and they kind of realized they had so many ideas that they were going to make a sequel. So I think they must have been working on it within at least as early as 2017, because the DLC started coming out in 2017 and finished at the beginning of 2018. So like they must have started in 2017. So it's at least been 4 years, almost. So
could be.
I mean, I have my hopes high. I'll be very disappointed if it's not there. Like, genuinely, really.
There's one thing that I've learned from life. It's that there are absolutely no downsides to having your hopes really, really high for something that has a chance of not happening at all. That's fine. But yeah, it's. I mean, you mentioned Metroid Prime 4 earlier, and that is rapidly starting to feel like vaporware, isn't it?
Yeah. I think, like, if we're going to see anything this year from Metroid, it's a 2D game. Metroid Prime 4 is like a write-off until they say something else, because they've been so quiet. Yeah, I just think you have to wait until they say something. But like a 2D, like, what was it? Samus Returns on the 3DS. They could do something like that, and it could come out in the fall. Oh, sorry, autumn. I forget. But it could come out in autumn, and it could be really like a kind of reminder. Obviously, we want the Metroid Prime trilogy, but who knows whether they want to talk about Metroid Prime until they're ready to talk about the fourth in the series.
Yeah,
But I don't know if they are.
Yeah, there was a news story a few weeks ago about the Metroid Prime trilogy. There was, I think, one of the developers who worked on the Metroid Prime games was explaining why it was potentially more difficult to bring that trilogy to the Switch, and it was mostly down to Metroid Prime 3 and the motion controls, as I understand it, because that game really leaned heavily into the whole Wii thing with the motion controls, like everything, motion controls for everything. You get a motion control, you get a motion control, and like that is something that's very difficult to kind of reverse engineer onto a Switch version, which doesn't have that capability. Or like it has some rudimentary kind of motiony accelerometer type stuff, but like not to the same degree as the Wii. But that said, to nip back to Zelda quickly, we have the Switch remake of remaster, I guess, of Skyward Sword coming next month, which also leaned very heavily into motion controls on its original release on the Wii. So it's not outside of the realm of possibility. I feel like I'm saying that a lot tonight. Nothing is outside the realm of possibility, everybody.
Oh, not nice.
I would argue that Skyward Sword is harder to put on the Switch than a Metroid Prime 3. Like, I think Metroid Prime 3 is doable if Skyward Sword is doable.
Yeah.
And because Skyward Sword's coming out in a few weeks, like, therefore Metroid Prime 3 is doable. But if they turn around and say, therefore Metroid Prime 3 on its own is a full $60 game, that's a whole different conversation.
Yeah.
It's probably going to be too.
Yeah.
I hope not.
Oh, God.
Well.
I really want to get Skyward Sword because it's one of the few mainline Zelda games that I never played. But it's just, like, do I want to pay that arguably unreasonably high price tag for a Wii game? I don't know.
That's Nintendo for you. I mean, have you seen how much GameCube physical games are going for on eBay? It's hundreds and hundreds of dollars right now.
Wow.
I mean, that has to do with the fact that I know you have it on the spreadsheet for a little later, but game preservation and how Nintendo sucks at it, that has to do with it.
Yeah. Like they're collectibles now, aren't they?
Exactly. Basically. Yeah. And my dad sold mine. Like,
I
had the fool.
I had the Zelda Silver case collection with Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time.
Oh yeah.
And it was like 5 different games. I had it, and my dad sold it. Like,
oh,
I mean
God.
Yeah, awful.
And then I had to buy it back from my dad for hundreds of dollars.
No, I mean it's okay. He didn't know. I mean, I didn't know. Like, he said it was okay, and I wasn't playing it anymore. I went, yeah, sure, whatever. And now I'm like, oh, come, Jesus!
I can't believe you did this to me.
And I think that's the discussion, isn't it? It's like Metroid Prime 4, when? Who knows? Yeah. Like, let's wait till they talk about it. Metroid Prime 2D, another thing. Who knows? Again, they've not said anything about that. We're just assuming. So the only Metroid stuff could be back catalog. Then what are they charging for it? How are they giving it to us? How much is it going to cost? That kind of applies to everything Nintendo that we don't know about. And that's quite dangerous right now. I feel, at least, like I don't want to pay a full price tag for Skyward Sword. I will because I'm an idiot. But
hard say.
I really don't want to. Like I felt a bit strongly about buying, Pikmin 3 full priced because the add-ons were very slim, very, very slim.
Yeah.
But I still did it and I had a great time and I like Pikmin. But here I'm like, I get you transposed it, but this isn't a Wii U game. This is a Wii game.
Yeah.
Like this console came out a decade ago.
Yeah, that's like 2 generations gone rather than just the one.
You've not done much to it other than make it playable, if you know what I mean. Like you've not done much to it other than mean I can use it on this console.
Yeah, which like obviously, as we alluded to earlier, like that's clearly still quite a bit of work from a kind of development perspective, and we don't want to kind of undermine or undervalue that. But at the same time, like as a player and a consumer, like it's hard to feel like you're getting anything more for your money from this version of the game than you might have done when it released a decade ago.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Nintendo likes to bet a lot on nostalgia, and it's working, and it's going to work still for quite some time, I think. But I think there's only so much you can get out of it. Like they really should start thinking about going a different way in regards to preservation and accessibility to their old titles. Because it is true that a lot of people started gaming with Nintendo, and there is a very strong nostalgia element there. But I don't know. You can only bank on it for so long before it becomes abusive.
I mean, like, I want to believe you're right, but also I feel like Nintendo has been riding this wave for so long, and it kind of, at the moment at least, doesn't seem to show any signs of abating. Like,
I think
they haven't really seemed to kind of change their policies or their approach to it at all, and still clearly doing fine. Switch is selling like gangbusters, and people are buying the games. Like, I don't know whether it is going to have a big effect or if it's going to tail off at some point, even though like I want to feel like it will, because it feels like it should, you know?
Oh yeah, but those are two different things. I mean, my point was on game preservation and game accessibility for older titles, and I do agree, obviously, that the Switch has been an amazing, huge success, because it was an amazingly good idea. Like the handheld with the big screen, and the possibilities of connecting it to your screen. It's so fucking brilliant. You can bring it to the train, to the plane, whatever. So that was great. But I feel like these are two different issues, two different points. And I do feel, as far as I see in social media, on whatever little use I do of social media, that people are starting to notice this pattern of, not only for Nintendo, that's true, that they're starting to notice this pattern of developers and movie studios and series just essentially recycling childhood when it comes to people in our age range. I don't know how old you are, Ben, but I'm talking about here, Max and I, on the 30-year-old mark, maybe even all the way to 40. It's constantly been a redoing of what made our childhood, quote unquote.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And recycling and reselling it, and yeah, I mean, it's been working so far to some extent. Some things are more successful than others in this regard, but I do see that people are starting to wake up to it, or to realize it and not starting to like it. And I don't believe Nintendo is going to be exempt from the effect that this is going to have on the market on the long run. Maybe I'm too optimistic this time. Go ahead.
Maybe, but also like, I mean, I think Nintendo has failed a lot of its franchises, so I wouldn't ever defend it for that. But I think if you look at the two big hitters I think I have two points. Firstly, like if you think Mario and Zelda, they've both kind of been reinvigorated in the Switch era. Odyssey isn't a total, reshaping of the landscape, but it is a completely different Odyssey game. It harkens back, Mario game. It harkens back to 64, but like it isn't 64, and it is genuinely excellent. And then you think about Zelda, which has never been like Breath of the Wild, and then Breath of the Wild just completely, I think Breath of the Wild is the reason the Switch sold, basically. Like that is the game.
I'd take that in Smash.
And Smash, but Smash is the one game that hasn't changed, but it's still excellent. You know what I mean?
It's just gotten bigger at this
then also
to a possibly absurd degree.
Yeah. And then also Nintendo has tried to reinvent, and hopefully they keep trying. Like ARMS didn't quite work, but Splatoon is one of my favorite games ever. That came out in a Wii U era and started to really live on the Switch. So I do think Nintendo.
Sorry, just a quick sidebar about Splatoon. Like that has not just been like like a great game in its own right that people have enjoyed, but like it's gotten surprisingly big on the esports scene as well. Like it's this,
yeah, really, like genuinely big,
yeah, like this which I feel like was never something that Nintendo was particularly known for in the past outside of Smash Brothers.
I mean, Nintendo are kind of against esports. Even the Smash Bros scene, they're kind of, hands-off kind of relationship with.
Yeah.
But like,
That's weird.
they created an amazing competitive game with Splatoon.
Yeah.
So people are competing with it. And like, I think Nintendo lean more into it, but nowadays at least. But like Splatoon, with its sequel coming next year, like, it's the only game I know that has a release like window that I'm like I will buy day one. I'm so thrilled for, because like I just want to play that game, and like that's a new thing from Nintendo. So like I do get that Nintendo is a nostalgic company like Disney or something like that, but I do think they like in the last like the Switch era they have pushed things forward in a way they haven't since maybe the Wii era. I think the Wii U was quite a fallow period of not pushing things forwards, just rehashing them in great ways, but still rehashing them.
Okay, but let me ask you this: what do you think is more of a staple, or what do you think is the big selling point of Breath of the Wild, for instance? Is it the new innovative, I guess, sort of gameplay that it has? Is it the open world? Is it the RPG elements? Or is it that it's actually Link and Zelda? Because I mean, they could have made the game. They could have made a different game with different characters with the same elements. But I think they're still betting on the characters because they know the characters are going to sell, which is also my argument for the newest God of War. Like they could have ended God of War with God of War 3, and that was a good enough conclusion for the game, and I think that was perfect in the set of the Greek mythology. But then they went on to the Nordic mythology, and I'm okay with it. It's a good game. I like it, but they could have done it with a different character. They're not doing it because they're betting on the nostalgia and the character. And let's continue with. I mean,
I do agree with you. Like, I think there's a kind of a balance there, though. Let's say that we're building this new game, and we want to attach something that will help it sell. Doesn't lessen the game, but I don't actually think they did that with Zelda, because I think they integrated things into ideas for Zelda, like a new physics engine, and then an open world, and then horse riding, and then bow and arrows, like new things going on. But
they specifically said that in designing Breath of the Wild, they kind of went back and took inspiration from the very first Legend of Zelda in its kind of big open world and kind of no or very little kind of hand-holding sort of things. You just kind of you go out and you discover the world and you kind of work from there in a way that a lot of the intervening Zeldas didn't really do as much. Like you have your Ocarinas of Time and your Twilight's Princess that like have this, the big open Hyrule, but you're still you're on a critical path kind of through it in a lot more of a linear way than you have in something like Breath of the Wild or the original Zelda as well. So I think we can all agree that Nintendo has something of a fraught relationship with the idea of game preservation going back several years now. They kind of simultaneously want to play on the nostalgia factor, as you were saying, Luis, but also they're very kind of insular when it comes to what they decide to share with their customers and who gets to make those decisions and who gets to see a lot of that content. And I think probably a very good exemplar of this is the recent news of this lawsuit that Nintendo recently won against website ROM Universe, which was initially filed back in 2019, and a couple of days ago, it was announced that Nintendo had won this lawsuit for $2.1 million, and kind of taking down and dismantling this ROM and emulation site. Now, I if under oath, I suppose I would be forced to admit that I had dabbled a bit with emulation in my dark and storied youth. But I think like it's one of those things, particularly with stuff kind of these days from say the N64 era, which isn't available on any Nintendo consoles anymore. Like if you want to play an N64 game, then you either have to hope that they kind of make a remake or a remaster, or like if you have one, go and plug it in with like the SCART cable into the back of the TV and all that sort of stuff, which is not really feasible for a lot of people. But Nintendo kind of comes down really, really hard on this. They're super protective of their IP, which obviously as a company they have a right to do, but it feels particularly militant, especially when you have examples like this where they've just won a couple of $1 million in a lawsuit against a ROM website. What's your guys' takeaway on this?
I would never encourage people to do things illegally, but ROM sites have helped me play some of the greatest Nintendo games ever made that were made before my time. And the only way for me to do that was through that. And then I also spent way too much money on the virtual console on my DS because I care about that stuff.
Yeah.
So like I'm willing to pay for it, but Nintendo's track record has always been like, let's pretend it doesn't exist and then suddenly do something with it that isn't, preservation, it's reinvention, which is just as valid. And they have every right to do what they want, but they kind of let things disappear. Like,
yeah,
I think it was the original Super Mario Bros. When it went up on the Wii Virtual Console, there was some code in that Virtual Console game that basically proved it was from a ROM hack. And I think that story has some, you should take what I'm saying with a pinch of salt. Look into it yourself because I half remember it. But if everything in that is true, Nintendo was utilizing ROM sites to sell on their virtual console. So these sites have been vital for their preservation, if that is true. And even if it isn't true, that they have kind of been vital for the preservation of Nintendo's identity. Like somebody being able to go and play Earthbound. Like,
yeah, Earthbound is a fantastic game.
Yeah, and this creates fans and this creates, consumers of Nintendo's nostalgia.
Yeah.
So they need to support it, and if they don't, ROM sites should be able to support it. So even though Nintendo has every right to do what they want in court, the real argument is where does their history get to live? And the only place it gets to live right now is on illegal sites. So it should live there because it needs to live somewhere.
Yeah.
I find it extremely, I don't know what the word, Jesus, I forgot the word. Well, I think it's weird, touching on the nostalgia tactic that I still say Nintendo uses with its characters and whatnot, instead of creating new IPs and just going by what people know and everything. I find it amazing that they're just so against game preservation and game accessibility for all titles. It's worth noting on the lawsuit that they were actually hoping for a 15 million payout from the website, and they got a significantly less. The judge ruled that I guess that amount was just insane for the person to pay. I think everything just came down to the site hoster, Matthew Storman, here on the name on the piece.
I still feel like 2.1 million is insane for one person.
Quite a lot of money.
It is a lot of money. But I mean, would you rather?
But they wanted even more. Yeah,
15.
Oh, definitely.
I mean,
yeah. Still too much.
Yeah. I guess there is a bit of a middle ground. It's also hard to feel entirely bad for the guy because they were charging. I mean, it was a service that were charging money for the downloads to some extent. I'm not exactly sure how much. I don't know. I mean, it feels weird to me that they're so against people playing their own old games. Because what's the argument? They're like, people already play these games. They're not gonna. Well, I mean, there were people that weren't even born there. What happens if someone that's 15 years old now or 10 years old now and wants to play something in the future because they read, oh, Earthbound is the most amazing retro game, or the original Mario's for the NES and SNES. Although I think they have those on the store. I'm not entirely sure. They have some titles. And
Yeah, they do.
and then there's nowhere to be found, and you have to go and hunt the physical pieces and pay right now 100, maybe in 10 years thousands of dollars for them, and Nintendo's not even getting a piece of that anyway. So I mean,
Exactly.
what's the argument? They could be making some back, although I mean, knowing Nintendo, they would probably try to sell them full price anyway.
Yeah.
But I mean, they could they could make like some sort of a game streaming situation. These are very light games from back in the day, and start making some more money, like from people. I mean, again, playing on the nostalgia in a sensible and smart way. And it just boggles my mind that they're not doing this and that they seem to be so against it. Like they, I don't know. I mean, they could have come to an agreement to the ROM side, and I don't know. I mean, there were so many things that they could do, and obviously they're entitled to press or to pursue a lawsuit and win it. I mean, it was obvious. I think it was always known that it was going to be won by Nintendo because it is their IP, and they can do whatever they want with it. But I don't know. It just seems counterintuitive to me, and the fact that they just want to have everything digital or mostly digital and everything old not be accessible anymore, I think it speaks volumes not only to Nintendo but to the entire industry. That I don't know, having everything digital presents its own challenges, because what's going to happen, let's say, if I or you guys ever grow and have children of your own. I don't know if you have any children or any illegitimate children or whatever.
I have 17 of them, but we don't talk about it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna get into that. I know you have more actually, and and then what happens when you're old or you're about to die? Like, you cannot give them your Steam library. You cannot give them your digital games. You cannot give them your digital music. There was an issue raised by this before. I think it was maybe 5 years ago, I read. It was an actor. I'm almost positive it was Bruce Willis, but take that again with a pinch of salt too. That was suing Apple because he was not going to be allowed to leave his music that he bought from the iTunes store to his daughters. And he was saying, his argument was, well, if I had bought this music physically, like CDs, I would be able to give it to them. So it should be the same. I don't know what came to it, but it is true. I mean, from a corporation point of view, it's actually better to have digital sales. Not only do you save money on actually making and fabricating the disc and putting the game into it and shipping it and having it sit on a rack somewhere and then having to be sold, but you can sell essentially the same game 2 generations.
Yeah.
So I think like
multiple copies.
The best way to compare as well is to ignore PlayStation and look at Xbox. Just think what they've done for the idea of game preservation. The fact that I got an Xbox Series X 2 months ago and I booted up Fusion Frenzy on it. Like, just, that's insane. And that isn't yet the trend, but that has to be the trend. Because let's say I couldn't play Fusion Frenzy anywhere, or I couldn't play Earthbound anywhere, or other than illegal places, then the illegal places will thrive. And like, Nintendo has to understand there's a market for that, and they are completely ignoring it. So therefore, a supply will exist. A supply will be invented if they're not going to supply it. So I don't think, like, even though Nintendo has a right to, I don't think they have any leg to stand on, because like, they know the market's there. They literally rely on that nostalgia.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think honestly, like, the whole question of game preservation is such a huge one. Like, we could probably talk for another hour on it tonight.
Yeah. Let's come on. Let's do it.
Well, I mean, we'll probably do an episode on it in the future. So you should all tune in for that. But like, yeah, like, Nintendo has this very troubled relationship with the idea, and I'm hopeful that going forward they'll be able to kind of do better, basically, and just be better about that in the way that, as you said, Ben, Microsoft, for example, is. I feel like as we're like it feels like we're kind of getting towards the end. If we kind of like wheel back slightly to kind of more concrete things, I guess, if you can even call it that.
The softest concrete ever.
The softest concrete ever. This stuff is still wet. You can put your handprints in it. It's fine. But let's talk Switch Pro. The rumor mill has been just grinding away for months now. Again, there are a lot of people who are suggesting that there might be an announcement at E3. Maybe.
I think it's more likely to have a Switch Pro announcement in E3, and I think it's even more likely to have a Switch Pro coming out this year than a Breath of the Wild 2, because they're gonna want Breath of the Wild 2 on the Switch Pro, because again, that makes you buy another console.
I kind of think though they come out at the same time, just like Breath of the Wild and the original Switch. I think they're going to redo that trick. I think the Switch Pro announcement has been, so the rumor mill, to recap, has been a few days ago, maybe 5 days from recording, so 7 days from when you'll be listening to this. Everybody was saying today we might get a Switch Pro announcement, and there was a lot of very reputable Nintendo insiders who have got things right in the past on Twitter saying it's happening today, and then nothing happened, and then the weekend went past and I kind of just forgot about it. Then the last few days people have been talking about it. People have said they found out things, and you kind of just ignore it all, but suddenly there was all this hype around the idea of an announcement which hasn't happened, even though it would make a lot more sense to announce it before E3, so they can say, look at this new game for the Switch Pro. This is how it will run on the Switch Pro. I don't know, but the reports from Bloomberg have been pretty solid that I think it is coming. Whether it's this year or not is another discussion altogether.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's fairly it's fairly solid that it is coming and it is a thing, but the specifics of it are still, well, some specifics are still shrouded in mystery. But there have been some fairly compelling leaks and rumors about like the new bigger screen and the 4K support when it's in the dock. I saw something recently that was supposed to be based off the someone who works in a manufacturing plant that had apparently gotten a look at the outside of it, which seemed to have like some reasonable ideas, like the thingy cradle, the dock will apparently have an Ethernet slot port, which would be great for online gaming and stuff. And
I think the current one does.
Don't think it does.
I don't know.
Really?
I don't have one.
Ooh.
No. Yeah.
I'm gonna look that up quickly because I swear I haven't had I have a Switch Lite for the last 2 years, but I had the Switch when it came out. I'm pretty sure it does.
If the Switch Pro does come out, then I'm just glad I didn't buy the regular Switch. I'm just glad that I pulled off,
that's
so
true.
I can just get a new one.
Yeah. I mean, that's another point. Like I have a normal Switch, and I don't think I'll get a Switch Pro unless there's like some sort of killer app for it that is like
I was wrong.
exclusive to
Sorry
it.
to interrupt. I was very wrong. It doesn't have it. Apologies.
Respect your elders.
Exactly.
Like I don't know if I'll get it unless basically unless I'm compelled to by Nintendo, which may happen. Like I was eventually compelled to buy a Switch. Like if Breath of the Wild 2 comes out and it's exclusive to the Switch Pro, then shit. Guess I'm getting a Switch Pro.
That's not going to happen though. They wouldn't make it exclusive because the Switch has sold so many copies. But I think like
it'll be on both.
If they said frame rate boost and like resolution boost and so many other aspects to it, would that convince you? Because it would convince me, because a lot of Breath of the Wild original ran quite badly.
Yeah.
Like if you went to the Korok, the the
Lost Woods.
Lost Woods. That's Korok Forest. I sound like a fake Zelda fan. But yeah, if you went to the Lost Woods, like the frame rate just disappears in a way that I can't enjoy that section in a proper way. And also with next gen being like, oh no, it's like it ruined it, a lot of it for me. Yeah. So like I don't know, and also I think we're all getting used to like next gen frame rates. Like it would be nice to say at least 30 FPS is the floor, whereas like you could even look at Zelda, the remake of Link's Awakening. The frame rate on that was really, really, really chuggy, and it's a kind of isometric, cartoony thing. And that's not great. I don't want that.
Yeah, and it sucks when it's just one area. You just gave me flashbacks of me trying to go down to Blight Town in Dark Souls on my own.
Oh my god. No.
Nightmare fuel.
No, thank
you. I actually beat it that first time on I think like 13 FPS. I mean, like I just powered through it, but it was bad.
Yeah,
it was bad. Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, for a lot of my time as a gamer, a game liker,
1974,
a liker of games. Like I was very much a Nintendo kid, so like the performance and kind of flashy graphics and stuff, like I never really experienced it that much growing up. But like there were still all of these amazing games, and I still had a really fun time. There's a kitty. Hello.
Yeah, very cute. For any audio listeners out there, Luis is holding a cat now, so we're all very excited.
Yeah, and then like I got an Xbox 360 when I was at uni, and then I kind of didn't really play a lot of games for a while, and then I was chugging along on an old laptop for a while, and now I have a Switch. Like I personally, like as much as I would love to like get a PS5 or a Series X and kind of really invest in like the kind of cutting edge technology that games are made of these days, like one at the moment, not sure I can afford all of it. At least, maybe one of the new consoles in a year or two. But like, I haven't really felt the push to get it, just because like it's never really been something that I've personally chased. So I honestly don't know if I would get a Switch Pro, even if it has all of these kind of extra graphical upgrades and stuff. But I don't know. I feel like I could still be convinced.
No, I do agree. I write in a lot of my reviews of like, full console games that end up on the Switch. Like I wrote it when I reviewed The Outer Worlds and when I reviewed Maneater. Like I wrote, I personally don't care, but other people might when I was talking about the graphics. Like it doesn't actually affect me, but I do think there should be a floor where like frame rate has to hit, because sometimes if frame rate's going below 30 at a regular amount, like for me, it is like, I just think the game should function on the console at that floor. And other than that, I kind of don't mind as long as it's a good game.
It should be the least minimum,
Yeah, for sure.
There needs to be an acceptable minimum. And a lot of Nintendo-made games on Switch haven't met that. So that's what I was more talking about. Like, I would genuinely, and also because I only own a Switch Lite, I don't have a proper Switch. I would probably invest in a Switch Pro thinking, I'd get the dock support now and then everything else beyond that. So...
that's fair. That's fair.
That also brings... Oh, sorry.
No, go for it.
And I was gonna change subjects almost. I was gonna say that that also brings some issues with cross playability, because I'm sometimes playing with my friends. Let's say Minecraft, I play with one friend, and I have another group of friends that play a lot of Fortnite, and I sometimes play that with them. And even though Fortnite is very light, I'm sometimes telling them, "Oh, there's this guy all the way over there," and they can't see him under the Switch. And I'm on my PC, and I'm like, "Whoa, it's right there." Like,
yeah. No, I think the Switch is definitely an underpowered console. I think the question is though, does a Switch Pro happen this year? Because I think, like, if I were to put like money on it, I would say a Switch Pro comes out by the end of this year. What do you guys think?
I think, as Luis said earlier as well, I would also say that a Switch Pro coming this year is more likely than Breath of the Wild 2 coming this year, despite what we were saying earlier about like they will
Don't say that.
be
though.
announced or released at the same time. But I like,
Let
yeah,
them come
I
together.
would, I would not be surprised to see the Switch Pro released come like the autumn, or maybe kind of in November time, just before like just in time for Christmas, basically.
Christmas, obviously.
That is my prediction, but
I'm worried now that in the next like the rumor I last read was that the Switch Pro will be announced on the 4th of June, which is the date this podcast goes out. So this could be a very out of date conversation very quickly.
It's going to be the day after this podcast goes out, because it's going out tomorrow, I think.
So it's fine. We have 24 hours of timeliness.
24 hours of relevance, everybody. Drink it in. Yeah, I think like that kind of brings us in meandering fashion towards the end. I mean, we can do a couple of quick fire predictions of like the last few franchises. Any thoughts on Donkey Kong? What is even going on with Donkey Kong these days? Where did that crazy ape get to?
We need another Donkey Kong game, whether it's a reinvention or it's just a new, Tropical Freeze 2 or something. Tropical Freeze was great, so do something like that again. That's all I say.
Here's my volcanic temperature take. Donkey Konga, do it again. Bring those bongos back.
That would be good. Touchscreen as well. You could alternate. Yeah.
Oh yeah. You know what you just reminded me when you said Donkey Konga? I remember Super Mario Strikers. I used to love that game.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Bring that back.
Yeah.
I would love
there was a
the
Super Mario
football
Strikers
game.
2, wasn't it?
I think there was one sequel.
Yeah, I think there was a sequel, but I don't know why it faded, and I never played the sequel. But the first one I used to play with my friends. Of course, I was in middle school. I mean, the equivalent to middle school in the US. And yeah, we would play that a lot, and it was very fun. The only games that I can tolerate that are sports based are like that, just fantasy. I don't actually play sports games.
But yeah,
no, I play a lot of FIFA and get very bored at the fact that Neymar isn't Mario. So I would much prefer Mario Strikers than FIFA. That's all I'll say.
I mean, I'm sure that's something we can all relate to.
Oh boy!
So Donkey Konga. Mario Strikers, bring it back, Nintendo. Any thoughts on Pikmin? You mentioned Pikmin 3 earlier, Ben. Do you think we're going to see anything Pikmin related in the near future?
I think we'll see Pikmin 4. I have a feeling, but
would be great.
I don't know when.
I love those little guys.
It could be any time. Pikmin 3 is an excellent game, and not enough people have played it. So yeah, I kind of feel like it's Miyamoto's little like second baby or third baby. It's his youngest child, and the last born is always the most looked after. So I think
spoilt rotten. That's Pikmin.
He's gonna push it through somewhere, but I don't know what's gonna happen with it. It could be whatever. But Pikmin 3 is good. It would be silly not to look at it again.
I personally could not get into Pikmin because when I was playing the first one for the very first time, I was playing it with my little cousin, and he was being a little brat. He just ruined the entire thing for me.
Oh no!
I just never touched it again. It's a bad.
You don't want that. You don't want that.
Yeah.
Maybe like Pikmin Trilogy released as a whole, and maybe they'll kind of dip the price of Pikmin 3 accordingly if they decide to do that. Well,
I have already bought
a man can dream.
3.
A man can dream, Lewis.
I've already bought Pikmin 3, and I know for a fact they will not give me a discount on the other two, even if they release them as a trilogy.
This has been a very optimistic episode, I gotta say.
Yeah, very optimistic.
Well, come on, you gotta laugh, otherwise you'll just cry. Okay, last one. Pokemon. Any thoughts going forward?
So we got new dates. Pokemon Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, November.
Yep.
Pokemon Arceus in January. Where's the new mainline Pokemon game?
Yeah, it's not just me, right? It's been a little while, right?
Oh, it's 2019, right?
Yeah, that's a couple of years, guys.
Yeah.
I've never been big into Pokemon myself, never into the anime or the games. And I think that's for the better because the type of gameplay would really draw me in. But I don't know, it's never actually draw my my attention in it. I did play Pokemon Go when all the craze was going on. And it was fun for a while. Didn't play it too much because my cell phone sucked at the time. And I like that Pokemon Go is still a thing because it was very fun to go outside. Although, I mean, I don't know what happened with Pokemon Go this year with the pandemic.
They did update it a few times with like pandemic staying at home kind of mechanics and things and things like that. So it's definitely survived the pandemic, and they're still adding new things to it. I think that is a really cool thing that they've done.
I think my primary thoughts on Pokemon are these remakes, Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl. They look really good. I will play them. I'm gonna have fun, but they're nothing exciting. Pokemon Legends Arceus is more of the question mark of, is that game going to look as bad as it did when we saw the trailer?
Yeah.
Because the trailer looked like, I'm not like one of those Pokemon fans that needs it to look great. Pokemon's Pokemon. But if you're making an open world Pokemon where you explore the world has to be nice to look at.
Yeah.
It matters a lot more. So like, I'm thinking about that primarily. If that game is more than we think it is, then I understand that there's no news for the next Pokemon. But if it is like, the vibe I'm getting right now is it's like a Pokemon Snap-esque size alternative. Even though they're bigging it up, I could imagine it being like a little bite-sized chunk of something else. If it's just that, I would worry.
Something just clicked on me while I was thinking about Pokemon, and I remember really, really, really enjoying Pokemon Stadium. I think that was back in
I love Pokemon Stadium, yeah.
And what's clicking with me now is that I'm playing Shadow of War right now. And I don't know if you guys played it, but
the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, Shadow of War.
I played the first one, but not
Shadow of Mordor.
Yeah.
Well, Shadow of War has this mode where you can send your the followers, the orcs that you control, or the Uruks, to a pit, which is sort of a coliseum, and to level up. But you can't interfere, so you're just watching there. And I'm thinking, this is Pokemon Stadium again.
Pokemon.
Like, that's why I like it. Wow, yeah, and I'm just playing it right now. I mean, I'm trying to beat it now. It's an amazing.
Just yelling at them, going, "Use flamethrower! Come on!"
Yeah, but the difference is that these guys do die. You know, it's not a Pokemon exactly, but yeah, I mean, I'm thinking about it, and I'm just sitting here for maybe 15-20 minutes while I fight my 4 or 5 guys to level them up, and 2 of them die, and I'm like, come on.
Come on.
It's Pokemon again. It's Pokemon Stadium all over again.
It is like, if we could get a Pokemon Stadium, Pokemon Coliseum, whatever the sequel would be, that would be a great way to like diversify Pokemon. Obviously, Arceus is doing that, but the question mark over Arceus is worrying me.
Yeah. No, yeah, I think that's definitely something that they should revisit.
I want to see something other than a remake or a question mark. That's what I mean.
Is that so much to ask for, Nintendo? Something other than a remake or a question mark? I mean, I think that about sums up the whole discussion we've had, really, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Nintendo, please give us anything other than a remake or a question mark. I think that will be a wrap for us, everybody. Hope you've had a really lovely time listening to us, and if you're watching the video, looking at our beautiful faces, hi. We are the KeenGamer podcast. We release episodes every Thursday. I've been Max, your host, and thank you very much to Ben and Luis, who've been joining me on this episode discussing wonderful Nintendo things. Hope you all had a lovely time, and we will catch you next week. See you then. Bye.
Yes, sir. Goodbye.